In Manaforge, gain prestige by building magical items for adventurers. Compete with up to 3 other players in a 9-round game, taking individual turns to build items and manage resources. Items are built using mana, the magical energy of wizards. Mana comes in 4 varieties: earth, fire, wind, and water. The number and combination of mana you have dictates which items you are capable of building that turn. An item's mana cost can be seen on the upper left corner of the item card. For example, Spark Wand requires 2 fire mana plus 2 of any type of mana to build. I'm sure you're wondering, how do you get mana? For each turn, players roll their dice, then choose up to 4 dice to activate, gaining the mana corresponding to the symbols printed on the dice. You can just get standard mana gem tokens, or maybe you'll get other special abilities. Though they both come in the same 4 elemental varieties, mana gem tokens aren't the same as normal mana. Normal mana disappears at the end of the turn, where mana gem tokens can be kept from turn to turn to allow players to build bigger, better items. Additionally, with mana gem tokens, players can upgrade the items in their workshop for more abilities. There's also a special kind of token, the Mana Prism. While not a mana gem itself, the Mana Prism can be traded for any element of mana gem. Each elemental mana die has its own special ability. Earth dice grant the ability Runestone. This ability allows the player to generate either 1 fire and 1 water mana, or 1 wind and 1 earth mana from that die. Fire dice grant the ability Transmute. This ability allows the player to copy the effect of one of their other dice, even the ones that have already been spent that turn. Wind dice grant the ability Power Surge. The ability recharges one of the player's items from its exhausted state. We'll get into charging and exhausting items in just a bit. Finally, water dice grant the ability Gem Copy, which allows the player to copy one of the mana gems already in their inventory. Arcane dice do not have a special ability side. Instead, each side has a different pair of element symbols. When using this type of die, choose one of the element symbols listed and gain that mana. Note that you can only gain 1 mana, not both. Items aren't just for gaining prestige, though they are a great source of it. Many items instead have useful abilities that provide mana or greater flexibility in resource management. There are 2 types of items. The item's type is noted in the top left corner, underneath the name. Store items primarily provide immediate benefits. They go into the player's store. On the other hand, workshop items provide resources or abilities over time and are placed onto one of the player's workshop spaces. Remember, each player can only keep 4 items in their workshop at a time. If a player wants to build another item for their workshop, but are already at the max capacity of 4 items, the player will have to discard one of their existing items to make space. Because of their awesome power, item abilities can only be used once each round. When these item abilities are used, they are then exhausted. Turn the card sideways to show it has been used that round. Exhausted items cannot use their abilities again, even if that item has multiple or unused abilities. Item abilities are distinguished by the black arrow notation. The cost of the ability is shown on the left of the ability, and the benefit of the ability is shown on the right. You must pay the cost and exhaust the item each time you want to use that ability. Some items in the player's workshop can be upgraded. These items are identified by gem symbols listed on the left side of the card. When a player first obtains an item like this, only the top ability listed is available to use. Once you've upgraded this item, it can unlock additional abilities of the item. To upgrade an item, the player will place 1 or more mana gem tokens on the item. Upgrades must be done in order from top to bottom. Each ability specifies what element of gem is needed to unlock it. When activating an ability of the item, any of the unlocked abilities may be used. Once a gem is added to a card to upgrade it, the gem can never be removed. Some items' abilities even require that you upgrade the item before allowing you to activate them at all. The last card type is talents. These reusable ability cards are drafted at the beginning of the game. Some of them provide upfront benefits like extra mana dice or a head start on prestige, while others provide abilities, just like items. Again, you'll find the cost of the ability on the left side of the black arrow and the benefit on the right. The difference with talent cards is that the abilities on talent cards do not exhaust the card when you use them. However, many of these abilities can still only be used a limited number of times each turn. The abilities cost still must be paid every time it is activated. Some talent cards have effects that activate automatically. These effects happen whenever the condition stated in their text is met. Now that we know how all the components work together, let's talk about setup. After everyone's chosen their color and placed their matching prestige marker at the beginning of the prestige track, separate the items into their dawn, noon, and dusk decks. Be sure to shuffle each one separately, deal 18 cards from each deck, then stack them together to form the item deck with dawn on top, noon in the middle, and dusk at the bottom. The rest of the item cards can go back into the box for use in a later game. Next is the talent draft. Shuffle all the talent cards together, then deal 4 to each player. Each player picks one talent, then passes the rest to the player clockwise of them. Repeat this process until all talents have been picked. Out of the 4 talents that were picked, each player selects 2 to keep, then discards the other 2. Now, deal out the mana dice. Each player gets one of each of the regular elements, fire, earth, water, and wind, in addition to the extra dice granted by their talents. In this case, as shown in the lower right corner of my talent cards, I gain an extra earth and an extra fire mana die. Finally, decide on who will be the first player. The first player receives the first player marker and 2 mana prisms. All other players receive 3 mana prisms. Your game is all set up, so let's talk about how to play through a round. Each of the 9 rounds is divided into 3 parts. In the board setup, deal the top 6 cards from the item deck into the item slots on the board. At this time, players also roll their mana dice and recharge all items in their workshops, turning them upright if they were turned sideways. Players then take their turns, starting with the player with the first player marker and proceeding in a clockwise fashion around the table. Finally, to end a round, discard all unbuilt items and have the player with the first player marker pass it clockwise. If there are no more items in the item deck, the game is over and the player with the most prestige wins. In case of a tie in prestige, the player with the larger number of remaining mana gems is then declared the winner. Let's discuss player turn actions. The types of actions may be performed in any order, and players can switch between actions freely. Most of the time, the first thing players will do is spend their mana dice. A player may spend a die up to 4 times per turn, selecting a die and gaining the mana, gem, or special ability of that die. Each die can only be spent once per turn. Most often, the mana gained from spending dice will be used to build items. Once per turn, players may use the build action to gain an item card, spending mana equal to its cost. If the player does not have enough mana to build any items, they may instead use their build action to gain a mana prism at no cost. In addition to these 2 actions, players may also activate item and talent abilities, as well as upgrade items in their workshop. All of these actions may be performed any number of times, provided the player can pay any associated costs. Remember that item cards become exhausted when activated, though talents do not. So there you have it! Good luck, and happy Manaforging!